All members of the Planning Commission, oh, thank you. I didn't turn on my mic. I like that they can do that for me. So all members of the Planning Commission, some staff and presenters are presenting from the council chambers. Others are participating from their homes or offices. So before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those hoping to participate in portions of the meeting. The city is committed to continuing to receive and hear your input on matters. We've been collecting input through voicemail and our engagement website, bettertogetheredina.org. It is important to know that all your comments have been submitted and they have been received and read prior to the start of this meeting. You do not need to submit comments in any other way if you have already submitted them. All feedback is considered equally, regardless of the way in which it was submitted. Tonight, there are 5 public hearings. Individuals who want to participate in providing testimony remotely for a public hearing can call 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052, and we'll list that number again before those kick off. Individuals in the room will be invited to come forward first to speak to the commission. Then we will hear from those who have called in. Everyone is allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. After giving your full name and address, the green light on the podium will turn on. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light will turn on. When you're out of time, the red light will turn on. Staff will let anyone know who calls in if they go over 3 minutes. Remember, you do not need to call in or comment live tonight if you've already provided your feedback. And again, don't repeat any information that has already been presented. Provide testimony if you have new comments or information to bring forward. Thank you in advance for your patience as we work together in conducting these hybrid meetings. We hope that there will not be any issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best if we can, if there are glitches. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and we can do our roll call today. Liz.
Thank you. Commissioner Berube?
Here.
Commissioner Bartling?
Here.
Commissioner Barbaro?
Here.
Commissioner Hayward?
Here.
Commissioner Strauss?
Here.
Commissioner Olson?
Here.
Chair Agnew?
Here. All right, and tonight we have 2 new members to the commission, so maybe we can start off with each of you just quickly introducing yourself, mention which school you're going to, and then I think that's probably enough, but if you want to add anything else, maybe about why you're so excited to be here, and we'll start with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenley Barbaro. I am a sophomore at Visitation School.
Hi, I'm William Hayward, and I'm currently a senior at Edina High School.
Well, welcome to you both. Excited to have you. All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at it? No? Any motions?
I move approval of the meeting agenda.
Second.
All right, Liz, roll call. Or,
We don't need roll call. Since we're all in person.
oh, we're all here. Oh my gosh. Okay, so all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the agenda passes. Next is the approval of meeting minutes from our August 25th meeting.
I move approval of the meeting minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes pass. Next up, we have our community comment. So for this portion, we specifically allow those who are in person, residents to share relevant issues or concerns. Again, individuals must limit their comments to 3 minutes, and I may limit the number of speakers on the same issue if there's an interest of time on a specific topic. Generally speaking, items that are elsewhere on tonight's agenda may not be addressed during the community comment. Individuals should not expect the chair or commission members to respond to their comments tonight. Instead, we will most likely refer the matter for staff for consideration at a future meeting. So would anyone in person tonight like to provide community comment? All right, seeing none, we can move on with our agenda tonight. So next is our public hearings. So the first public hearing that we have is B2128 for the front yard setback variance at 313 Graffitt Street. And it looks like we have Emily tonight.
Good, okay. Thank you, Chair and the Planning Commission. 313 Graffitt Street is located on the east side of Graffitt Street, north of Belmore Lane and south of Spruce Road. The existing structure is a split-level home with a two-car garage that was built in 1957. The applicant is requesting a 6.3-foot front yard setback variance for a second floor addition. The existing first floor of the home has a non-conforming front yard setback. The applicant is requesting the variance for an addition that continues that non-conformity on a new floor. The proposed addition will not be any closer to the front property line than the existing first floor sits today. The current first floor sits at 30.8 feet from the front property line. The required front yard setback is 37.1 feet. The required front yard setback is based on the existing setback of the property or of the home on the property to the north. With the exception of the front yard setback, the proposed project meets all other zoning requirements. Staff believes that the variance criteria have been met in this instance. The proposed use is permitted in the R1 zoning district, and the proposed addition complies with the zoning standards with the exception of the front yard setback requirement. The practical difficulty is caused by the existing location of the home and the required setbacks based on the house that currently exists on the property to the north. Due to the addition being on a different floor, the non-conforming setback standard does not apply, and the home will be refurbished and modified within the existing setbacks. The existing house has non-conforming setbacks and was built prior to the current ordinance requirements. There were not any variances granted for the original construction of the home in 1957. The proposed addition will continue the non-conforming setback on the second floor that was allowed when the home was originally built. The setback requirements have changed over time and have created some nonconformities throughout town. This nonconformity was not created by the applicant tonight. Staff believes that granting the variance will not alter the character of the neighborhood and the addition will match the nonconforming first floor setback. With that, staff's recommendation is to approve the 6.3 front yard setback variance for a second floor addition at 313 Graffitt Street, based on the findings and conditions that are listed in the staff report. And with that, I can answer any questions, and the contractor as well as the homeowners are on the call virtually tonight.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, planner. Looking at the compliance table, the city standard for that west side front yard, 37.1. How many properties was that determined by? Was it just the neighbor?
Matching the property to the north. The property to the south is actually owned by the city, and there isn't any structures located on it. It's part of that pond.
And like I said, that number is determined by an average of properties.
Yep, the required front yard setback is either matching the properties on either side, so in this instance, it's just the property to the north, or the average of the block.
The one property. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, and did the applicant have a presentation or is it just available for questions?
I don't believe they have a formal application, but they are on the call if they'd like to state anything or introduce themselves. But to my knowledge, they do not have a formal presentation tonight.
Okay, would you like to introduce yourselves or say anything on this matter?
Hello?
Oh, I will take that as a no.
I heard them very softly.
Can you hear me?
They may want to try again. It looked like the line was muted at first.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can hear them, Dan, can you?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Trevor Flatwood. I'm a co-owner of the house in question. I just wanted to say we're very hopeful the variance passes. I think our idea all along has been to stay in this house for many years to come. And we love our yard, we love our neighborhood, we love living in the city, and we just need a little more space for our 3 young boys to grow up in. So we're really hoping this passes. And we have spoken with all 4 of the 4 neighbors that share the pond with us, and as far as we know, they are supportive of the plan. So we hope that helps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right. Any comments from anyone on the commission? Any motions?
I would move to approve based on the conditions. Oh, whoops. You had me going.
That's why I had Sheila pointing, I think, for me. All right, this is a public hearing, so we will do the public hearing portion of tonight's event. So we will now hear from residents who would like to provide testimony. If you are participating remotely, call in now, and again, that number is 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052. And are we able to get that number up on the screen as well? An operator will ask for your name and street address and put you in queue to after you press *1. So again, if you want to speak tonight, press *1, and we will hear from those in the room and then move to those on the phone. So with that, is anyone in the room here tonight to provide public testimony for this matter? Nope. Seeing none in the room, we will move to the phone.
We do not have anyone on the line to call in.
All right, we'll give it the minute.
Dang it. Yeah.
All right, are there any callers in the queue?
No, there are not.
All right, I think we can probably close the public hearing then.
Please don't. Dang it. Shit.
Do we need a motion? Yes, we do.
I move we close the public hearing.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. And now I will open it up for any other comments on this matter from commissioners. Or a motion if that is desired.
I move to approve with the conditions of the staff report.
I second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this request passes. Thank you. Next up on the agenda tonight, we have a variance request for 5101 Windsor Avenue. And planner Chris Ocker will be presenting tonight.
So the subject property is at 5101 Windsor. There are 3 variances for the addition that they're requesting. A 25.4-foot setback variance from Windsor, 22.94-foot setback variance from Warwick Place, and then a 16-foot rear yard setback variance And it's all to put an addition directly above the existing non-conforming garage. So this is an updated survey of the property, and outlined above the garage is where they would like to add on to the house. It's a 2-story house. They would like to continue that second floor over the existing non-conforming garage. In order to do that, they are supposed to theoretically line up with the house directly to adjacent along Windsor, and then also match the average front yard setback along Warwick Place. And they also have a 25-foot rear yard setback. This is the existing home as it looks today. They hope to add on to the garage directly above. What you'll notice is that there's a very deep area that is the boulevard area, right-of-way area between where the intersection of the street is and where their actual lot line is. So there's a lot of distance between the structure and where the street intersection is, or where either one of the streets are located. So this is a view along Warwick Place with the home that's adjacent, and it's much further back than the subject property. This gives you an idea of the orientation, and then also shows you that area that's the boulevard area that's not part of the lot, but actually provides quite a distance between the lot line and where the street frontage is. This illustrates in yellow the buildable area of the lot. So clearly there are some challenges in terms of adding on to the property. So this is the first floor plan, the master bedroom that's being proposed above. This is the front elevation. They are going to be re-siding, adding some new roof lines. They're going to be adding a small front entry porch, so the look of the home will change just a little bit. So this is the existing to the left, and then to the right elevation is the proposed. This gives you an idea of what it'll look like in context with the new siding and the new roof lines added. And then also a view from Warwick Place. You did receive, probably today, in your packet or in an email, all of the letters of support that they received, and those are the green stars showing those neighbors that do support the request. So in terms of conforming to the variance requirements, will it relieve a practical difficulty? The proposed use is permitted in the R1 zoning district. However, the location of the house predates our current code. It did not require any variances at the time. In order for them to add anything on, they really do need to go through the variance process. They aren't going to be adding to the footprint at all. It will just be going directly above. Granting the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The addition will match the existing home setbacks on the first floor with all other aspects of the addition to conform to the requirements. The applicant will be changing the look of the house to be more in keeping and to complement the neighborhood. Staff does support the request. With that, I will stop and answer any questions you may have. I believe the homeowners, as well as their contractor, is present. And with that, I will stop and answer your questions.
Thank you, Planner Ocker. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Jerry. Commissioner Strauss.
Yeah, Planner, in the compliance table, usually there's a building height.
Pardon?
In the compliance table, usually there's a line for building height. Is that not an issue? Is the roof line going to be the same as the existing?
The roof line will be slightly taller, but the width of the lot, they could be much taller, actually. I mean, they could be well over 35 feet.
Okay, I mean, that's usually something we see in there, but...
It is, and I apologize for that.
Well, it's nothing big, but, okay. But we're well under whatever that...
Yes, they're well under their requirement.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Strauss. All right. Would the applicant like to make any statements? Not required. All right. So with that, I will open up the public hearing officially this time. So again, we are now opening up this public hearing. Would love to hear from residents who would like to provide testimony. If you are participating remotely, call in now to 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052. An operator will ask for your name and street address, and to put you in the queue, you just need to press *1. First, we will hear from those in the room and then move on to those on the phone. And just so everyone knows, I am going to continue to repeat this after every time so that we're able to repeat the number. But is there anyone in the room tonight who would like to provide public testimony for this variance request? All right, seeing no one come forward, I will move to the phone. All right, has anyone dialed in for this one?
We do not have anyone dialed in right now.
All right, and so for those of you who are joining us remotely, there is a bit of a delay for when this is reaching the various mediums in which people can join us remotely. So we do just give it a minute for that delay so anyone can call in. I think I only used 15 seconds explaining that, so we'll give it another 40 seconds. All right, seeing that no one else has called in, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the public hearing portion is closed. Would any commissioners like to provide a statement or give feedback? Go ahead.
Just a quick one. I applaud you for again, this is build above the garage night, I guess, but applaud everyone for doing, staying within place. But with this case, I'd like to maybe see, and I know it's, just how it depends on the variance really doesn't, but just a comment that it is facing two streets and the side seems to be kind of ignored, and I'd like to maybe see something done if there is any opportunity to address the street so it's not just a flat wall with not very much fenestration, and generally would like to see that as houses come forward if they're getting variance requests that for two front streets, to think about that. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Bartling. I too really appreciate seeing these types of variance requests where people are kind of maintaining that existing footprint and really just adding in the more space that they need. I really like that kind of embracing of the homes as we have them. So I think it's a theme that we will see tonight, but that kind of stands for these types of variances for myself. Commissioner Bennett.
I move to approve the variances requested subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, this variance request has been approved. Thank you for coming in. All right, next on the agenda is a variance request for 5616 Woodcrest, and it looks like we have Planner Acker presenting for us again.
Thank you. This property is at 5615 Woodcrest Drive. It backs up to Minnehaha Creek. It is actually a multi-story home. It's not technically a two-story home. It's at a number of different levels. They are proposing to add a bedroom above the garage, and similar to the last request, they are not going to be adding to the footprint of the building. They will be adding a small covered stoop with a couple of columns, but they're not going to be adding anything to the building footprint. So this is the home as it exists today. And what they would like to do is go straight up above the garage. This is the addition that they're proposing. And to the top of the roof, it's going to be 23, a little over 20, roughly 24 feet. And I guess I missed that on the compliance table, and I apologize for that. Commissioner Strauss for catching it the last time. As a side note, all 3 variances tonight came in through the building permit process. That's how it was found that they needed variances. So all of these were a surprise to the property owners. So all of the other compliance has been checked previously. So this is the new addition above the garage that they're proposing. It would be an additional bedroom, closet, and bathroom area. Main floor level of the existing garage, and then another view of that second floor addition. And the floor plan, or the upper level. And then this is a view of it in context. The homes on either side are 2-story homes with higher roof lines, so it'll be more in keeping with what is existing adjacent and well within the neighborhood. So the variance will relieve practical difficulties that prevent a reasonable use of the property. The house itself is at the maximum allowable lot coverage, so they really have no other opportunity to add on. In addition to that, they're backing up to Minnehaha Creek, so they do have an issue with rear or setback from the creek if they would have an opportunity to add on, but unfortunately the house was originally built at the maximum coverage, so really their only option is to go up. And here's another view with the adjacent neighbor. It's a 2-story home. So the existing house is non-conforming with the addition above the garage, matching the non-conforming side yard setback. The existing garage is closer to the side lot line than currently allowed. At the time that it was built, it did conform. Granting the variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The applicants are hoping to provide additional interior space above that existing garage, like other homes in the neighborhood. And the addition will be a seamless addition and will look as if it were part of the original plan. There are homes of similar scale in the neighborhood and adjacent to the home. Staff does recommend approval of the 4.4-foot side yard setback variance. And with that, I will stop and answer any questions. I believe the homeowners and their builder are here for questions as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Planner Ocker. Do we have any questions for the city? All right. Would the applicant like to say anything? I don't know who the applicant is. All right. So seeing that there aren't any questions, then I will go ahead and open the public hearing. So again, we'd like to hear from residents who would like to provide testimony tonight. If you are participating remotely, you can call in now to 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052. An operator will ask for your name and street address, and then we'll put you in queue to speak after you press star 1. First, we will hear from those in the room and then move to those on the phone. Is there anyone in the room tonight who would like to provide public testimony for this hearing? No? Seeing none, I will look to the phone line. Has anyone called in?
We do have one caller, and I believe this person may be affiliated with the property. So if that person would like to hit star 1 to enter the queue, then I think they're having some audio difficulty.
We have a question from the line of Tom Brudden. Your line is open.
Yes.
Have they pressed star 1?
Yeah, they are in queue. I believe they're trying to speak over the intercall, which is why we're getting a little bit of an echo. I'm gonna try and see if I can figure this out. If Mr. Von Ruten, who is our caller, can mute the meeting on his side of the line, that should hopefully help.
Okay, hold on.
No, we're still getting quite an echo.
All right, is that better?
Are we able to mute the call-in line?
So what we can do is, because I believe he's dialed in to the intercall as well as on the WebEx. Mr. Von Ruten, if you want to hang up off the intercall, phone call, we still have you on the WebEx itself, and we can go ahead and unmute your line there.
Okay, all right. Hang up then? Okay.
So on the WebEx itself, your line should be unmuted now if you want to go ahead and give it a shot speaking.
We're unfortunately the home that was built, close to the property line at that time. We couldn't control the setback rules at that time. But with the addition that we're going to put on the home, only really makes it cosmetically right over the top of the garage. And I guess we're following all the rules as far as the building permits goes. And then when it comes to the impervious surface, the property owner has shortened the deck to make it smaller, so to limit that space. So we are feeling that we are not overextending the home in the neighborhood, overbearing in other homes.
Excuse me, sir, I'm actually going to have to stop you. We are still getting an echo, and I don't think I'm able to fully understand your testimony, and I do want to be sure that we're able to capture that. Dan, do you have any recommendation on how we can improve this audio quality?
The only thing I think is if on his side, because we're hearing it twice, obviously coming back, if you can mute your speakers on your line, but to leave the microphone open, that's why we're hearing that echo. So if you can turn your volume down on your side, we should be able to hear you fine coming into the chambers, but then we won't be hearing the echo of it as well.
I'm not very apologize, I'm just not very good at this stuff.
He's no longer connected on the intercall, so it's just the volume on his actual side that is what we're hearing. So you'll need to turn your volume all the way down, or at least your speaker volume all the way down on your side, Mr. Von Ruten, so that we don't hear the feedback.
That's good.
And there is a little bit of a delay, which we think might be part of the reason as well.
Okay, so if we aren't able to get this to work, do we have other recommendations? I do want to be sure we hear from the speaker.
The best thing he can do is to stop watching the meeting on his side, whether that's on his computer or on his TV, because that's where we're picking up the audio from.
If I may interrupt, Chair Agnew, this is the contractor, so it's not a resident calling in. This is actually the applicant that's trying to speak.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I can repeat. He just was just repeating himself, stating that they felt that they were considering the neighborhood and they weren't doing anything that was out of bounds, and that neighbors felt comfortable. That's what I got from it. That's about all I got from it.
Yeah, that's correct. I apologize, guys. I can't get the speaker to go down.
Did Commissioner Bartling accurately capture your sentiment, or was there more that you wanted to try and add?
No, I think that's at this point.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining. Are there any other callers in queue tonight? No? Okay. Then I think we can probably close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the public hearing now is closed, so we can open it up for commissioner discussion.
I make a motion to approve according to the information presented to us today.
I'll second that.
All right, all of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this variance passes. Thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, so now the next item is a preliminary rezoning and preliminary development plan with variances for city homes at 4630 France Avenue. And it looks like Director Teague will be presenting.
Okay, yep, there we go. Okay, thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. So this property is located just south of the commercial area up along 44th, 45th and France, Morningside area, so located on the west side of France. The property is 4630 France Avenue, and it exists as an existing single-family home. The property highlighted in white here, so this is a zoning map. The two properties in white are zoned low-density residential or single dwelling unit district. To the north is PRD2. So with that development, it's two duplexes that are accessed by that private drive that you see. So the request this evening is to mirror that zoning to the north with a private drive to serve two properties. The Xed area to the south, that indicates duplexes. The site is guided in our comprehensive plan for low-density attached residential, so up to 8 units per acre. That's the area highlighted in the darker yellow here. So it's all of these properties. This is the one we're looking at. Here's a picture of the site from France Avenue. It's this existing single-family home. Those duplexes, the 4 units to the north, kind of in that treed area. It's a rendering of what the applicant, again, is proposing to build 2 villa-style homes off of a shared drive off of France. So the request is a rezoning from the existing R1 district to PRD2, a preliminary plat to create a lot for each house, side yard setback variances from 20 feet to 7 feet to the north lot line and 15 feet to the south lot line, a rear setback variance from 35 feet to 25 feet, building coverage variance from 25% to 26%, and also lot size variance from 7,300 square feet to just over 5,000 square feet. So this rendering indicates what the required setbacks would be. So just this thin area within the red lines, and that's due to the 20-foot setbacks to the side yards. 30 feet to the street and 35 to the single-family development to the west. So most of you likely recall that they did go through sketch plan a few months ago. This was the site plan that was shown at that time. And you may recall we talked about, so they were proposing, so they're indicating a 20-foot setback here, but the home itself was 25 feet to that rear lot line. And to the front from France Avenue, the property line to the actual structure was 40 feet. So what was suggested by staff, and I believe the Planning Commission and Council agreed with, is all of this could be shifted 10 feet to the east to meet that setback to the west and still meet the setback to France. There's really, again, nothing that can be built to meet those side yard setbacks. Just a rendering of what the structure looked like at sketch plan. This is a rendering of what it would look like from France, and a few more, and the applicant may address the specifics of the structure itself. And this is the site plan, again, shared drive off of France. So primary issues for consideration: is the rezoning reasonable, and are the variances reasonable? So first, in starting with the rezoning, staff does support the rezoning. Again, it's consistent with that property and how that was developed to the north with the PRD2 designation. The average lot size to the north are just under 4,400 square feet. The proposed lots here are 5,000 square feet, so again, pretty similar to that development. Again, it would be consistent with that PRD2 zoning to the north. We believe that the relationship between the structures is reasonable here. There would be a 17-foot spacing between the proposed home and those duplexes to the north. To the south, there would be a 19-foot separation. So to give you some context, within the R1 zoning district on our 50-foot wide lot neighborhoods, Country Club, a lot of the east side of Edina, where the required setback is 5 feet. So in our single-family neighborhoods, it's not uncommon to have a 10-foot building separation between single-family homes. So the thought being a 19 and 17-foot separation seems reasonable in this case. The rezoning is consistent with that comprehensive plan designation. So this graphic again shows that 17 feet separation to the building to the north and 19 to the south. Again, the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Now, in regard to the variances, staff is supportive of the side yard setback variances and the lot size variance. Practical difficulty is due to the small size of the lot and that narrow width. We believe that it's reasonable, again, to develop similar to that property to the north. In regard to that rear yard setback, again, we believe that that setback could be met, and also if the structures were reduced in size, they could meet that 25% building coverage. So staff is not supportive of those variances. And again, the lot sizes are similar to the north. We did have some feedback from Better Together, and we had a concern with the property owner to the north about the close setback. Also comments from the residential district to the west. This site sits much taller than that single family district. So again, staff's thinking of meeting that 35-foot setback can help address that issue. So with that, staff is recommending approval of those variances, denial of the rear yard and building coverage, and approval of the rezoning subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report. With that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Director Teague.
Okay.
Any questions? Commissioner Strauss.
Director Teague, as far as staff, I mean, it's that rear line setback. Maybe I missed it. How you believe that there's a solution, and that is what, just shifting everything easterly, and then it still allows for the appropriate setback from France?
The structures will have to be reduced in size.
Okay.
They're a little bit larger than what we saw at sketch plan, so there would have to be some reduction in the massing.
Not just a question of moving everything as is.
Right. If they were similar to what was shown at sketch plan, it was just a matter of shifting, but they did get a little bit larger.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Bennett.
So if they were to agree with your proposed alternative and shifted everything east, how much would building number 1 stick out beyond its neighbors to the north and south effectively?
Yeah, so they're showing a 30-foot setback here. To the north, it would stick out about 18 feet. And to the south, well, a little bit less than that, but in that 15 to 18 feet range.
Is that line, I mean, from driving by, it looks pretty consistent. Is that line to the north-south pretty consistent up and down the block? I mean, that specific block?
I believe they are, yes.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I ask is just, if you support pushing it east, the more that building just sticks way out beyond its neighbors, which has detracting qualities as well. So I can see there's a push and pull challenge here. But
Yeah, again, at sketch plan, they showed a 40-foot setback. They're showing 30 here.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question because I think I'm confused now about your recommendation as opposed to what Commissioner Bennett was just proposing, or your question. Is your suggestion, Director Teague, that just proposed dwelling 2 gets pulled in and that the front yard setback currently at 30 feet remains? So like proposed dwelling 1 line would stay the same, it was just squished back and maybe smaller
Correct.
homes?
Yep,
Okay.
that's right.
So you're not suggesting encroaching on that 30 front setback as it exists today?
Yep, that both the front and the rear setbacks would be met. And it's really largely due to this graphic here, where you can see they can't meet the side yard setback, so it's reasonable to grant variances there. But they do have, enough buildable area to meet the 35-foot and the 30-foot setbacks.
Thank you. Do you happen to have information on what the existing setbacks are today of the property that is on site?
Ooh, I might have that. I don't have it right up here, but I can find that out.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Director Teague? Please go ahead.
Yeah, can you remind us, usually when we talk about front yard setbacks, it's the average of the houses next door to it. And this is very different from that. Can you remind us why that is?
It is. It's because of the different zoning district being PRD2. If this were R1 up and down on both sides, it would be either the average of the 2 or the average of the block.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miranda. All right. Does the applicant have a presentation today as well?
Not a formal presentation, but maybe they'd like to introduce themselves and answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, please. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Dave Remick with City Homes. I've got Jeff Zebarth, who's the architect and designer on the project. And I guess kind of the purpose behind the project is there, in our view and our experience directly, there's a significant unmet demand for downsized single-family homes for the empty nester and the aging in place population in Edina. And a lot of this population have concerns or do not want the apartment style assisted living, and they want a smaller home that they can occupy just for themselves. And there's really a lack of appealing options kind of all throughout the city for those older residents that are looking to downsize from their existing single-family homes, which might be larger, to a smaller single-family home to facilitate aging in place. And when you combine this with certain areas of Edina where the prices of the lot make it difficult for a homeowner to build one structure on these properties, that's what's caused us to look and say if we can fit 2 smaller but reasonably sized homes on a property like this, that obviously spreads the cost of the property over 2 homes, which kind of brings it into a much more accessible price point. And so when we put all of those together, and just to address, Jeff will get into the specifics, but to address why the structure has changed some from the initial sketch plan presentation or review, is that was more of a split level design where there were a lot of steps coming up from the garage, going down to the basement, or up from the garage into the main level, down to the basement. So what we did is we created what can be a single level orientation where you go straight in from the garage into the living level, and it also accommodates room for an elevator. And doing all of that and leaving enough space between the homes for ample turnaround area is kind of where we landed with the footprint that we have. And when we were referencing different codes, yes, the PRD2 is a 35-foot setback, but residential R1 and PRD1, which is for single, double, or townhouses, is 35 feet. 25 feet from the rear yard setback. So just wanted to give a little bit of background of kind of how we landed on the design elements that you've seen tonight versus what was presented during sketch plan. And I can let Jeff talk to some of the more specifics on the changes in the design.
Thank you, Commissioners and Director Teague. I know this has been somewhat of a complex project, although it's small and has some complexity to it. Dave has mentioned that the design did change from the concept plan that we showed back in May. You guys were very supportive of that, primarily because of some of the items that Dave mentioned in alternative housing product for Edina. Some of the technical challenges for the setback from the rear, keeping the front setback at 30 feet, is that it compromises the access to the garage space. If we take that space, make the houses smaller, we only have around 30 feet between each home, and it becomes quite difficult to navigate cars in and out of those garages. The townhomes to the north have roughly 40 feet between the garage spaces, so even at 35 feet, we are smaller than that. The other thing is the plan did increase around 3 feet. The elevator as a item within the design takes up about a 5-foot width or length in the house, so that automatically added 5 feet just to plan for that elevator, because we felt again that was a critical element to get aging in place housing requirements. And then finally, as David mentioned, Director Teague, I'm interested in why this is considered PRD2 versus PRD1. And my understanding is that PRD1 allows townhomes and basically more than a single family. And so we're kind of in between a PRD1 and a PRD2. And why that's a critical point is that 25-foot rear setback versus 35-foot rear setback. And I know there's concerns with that setback from the neighbors. I understand that. We also know that if this were a single-family home with the price point that the lot is at, there would probably be a very large home built on this property with the variances that we're achieving, probably in the neighborhood of 5,000 square feet or more. So the imposing nature of that structure we think would be quite different than what we are proposing and trying to break the scale down. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicants? Commissioner Olson.
So can you explain why you can't meet the lot coverage requirement?
Again, this gets to the complexity. The survey actually has the parcels not equal in size. One home in relationship to its lot is 24.7%. The other one is 26 when you average them, which means we just hypothetically move the property line. They are close to 25%. I think we're around 60 or 70 square feet over, 1320 square feet per dwelling versus a required 1250, I believe. So we're really, really close. And again, that plan grew because of that elevator requirement that we're planning for each home. Did that answer your question?
I actually want to build on that question for Director Teague. So the number that's here in the compliance table, is that for each individual lot that would be constructed, or is the percentage the total of the lot as it exists today?
The requirement would be for each lot. They couldn't exceed 25% for each lot.
And is the compliance table based off of each individual lot right now as the numbers show, or is this the combined two lots?
It's the combined two lots.
Okay.
So they would have to take a little off of each.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, well, if you think of any, we can come back to that. But for now, we will move to the public hearing portion. So we will first invite those who are in person here tonight to provide public testimony, and then we will invite those who are on the phone to provide their public testimony. If you are participating remotely, call in now at 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052. An operator will ask you for your name and street address, and then we'll put you into the queue after you press *1. So I will invite first anyone who is in the room to provide any testimony that they would like to. Is anyone in the room here? Please, one person at a time. Do we have a preference on which?
It does not matter. The only request we ask is just that you please clearly state your name and address for the record. But both mics will be open.
This, Scott Fishman. I'll need some help with visuals on. Thank you. I'm Scott Fishman, and I live at 4613 Meadow Road, just to the west of the proposed project. Thank you. Then I can just use this to scroll. I lived there going on 10 years. I lived there. I've been an Edina resident since 1970, about 40 years an Edina resident. We took this plat map from online from the Edina website, which shows here roughly to scale the two red rectangles representing houses 1 and 2. This is my house, which sits about 15 feet down a hill, I estimate. Difference in ground elevation, that would be my deck, for example, up to where the ground level might be in this area. And on top of this, including, in addition to superimposing the two houses proposed, we drew a line, straight line here, 20 feet in. That was the original proposed setback. And then we drew another line which followed the rear setbacks of all the existing dwellings up and down France in this area, if you can follow that. So, save for this garage here, not a dwelling, there's nothing else in what I would call, I guess, this backyard zone that goes on. It's a very attractive part of the neighborhood for both the dwellings along France as well as their neighbors to the west on Meadow Road. So when we look at this, we see a house built on the street and another one just like it, I guess kind of flipped around. House, driveway, and garage dropped in the backyard zone, if you will. Now, if it ends up going to a 30-foot setback or 35-foot setback, fundamentally this house here is still going to be sitting in this backyard zone, which affords beautiful views, woods, trees, et cetera, et cetera. Not to mention the fact that if you look at Catherine Winston's house, right, and her nice new little deck in the yard here, this is what she'll be looking at when she sits out on her nice new deck, right? Other than this long sight line up and down the backyard zone. And then for her neighbor to the north here in the 4 townhomes, Laura Westland's here. She lives in this one here. She's got this beautiful bank of windows. That's what she'll be looking out on. It's hard to not look at this and think, what the heck is that house being plopped in this zone for, all right? And also, it makes you wonder, why would you not be going for an R2 designation here for duplexes? There are 3 other R2 lots here, same width, the duplexes. Putting in a nice fancy duplex here could accomplish a lot of what Dave was talking about. They're looking to put in a development that would allow people to age in place, who don't want apartments, they want a smaller home. And in addition, of course, whatever you put in here in the form of a duplex would almost certainly be more affordable for people than 2 separate homes. Not to mention the fact that if a nice duplex were put in place here, it would preserve this beautiful yard area. Okay? I don't know where I am on time right now.
You are up on time, so thank you.
Sorry?
It's up on time now. Thank you.
I'm up on time already?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, yeah, thank you very much.
All right, I believe we have another person, so please come up.
Good evening. I'm Laura Westland at 4626 France in the townhome in the back of the lot next to the property we're discussing. The architectural design of my home and the outdoor spaces that are integral to it are very connected to the natural environment of my lot. This is a heavily wooded, dense vegetation area between France Avenue and Meadow Road. I have 2 large outdoor decks, a professionally landscaped yard, a balcony off the north side of my property, and the west facade of my home is entirely windows. So right now, in all these spaces and in my home, I look out on this area of trees and vegetation that runs the entire block between France and Meadow Road. With the construction of the West Villa, or Villa 1 on the proposed plan, I would now be looking out at a very large home. With the change in the side yard variance to 7 feet, this puts this home very close to my yard and my home. Not only would I be looking out at this home, but I also have a concern that the people who live in this home are now looking at me, not only looking at my yard, but looking into my home, given that the west side of my home is windows. I'm also concerned about the trees in my yard. The canopy and the drip lines of the trees that are currently in my yard indicate that it's likely that the grading, the excavation, and the construction of this west villa would disrupt the root zone of many of my trees. Right now, only 1 tree has been specifically marked on the plans that we reviewed for tonight for preservation. That is on the back of the 4630 lot. I believe that trees in my yard might also be in danger, and a tree protection plan or a tree preservation plan should be made to protect these trees on my property. I am opposed to the side yard variance of 7 feet. There is no hardship here that requires the variance. The fact is that this is a very narrow lot on France Avenue. It is not conducive to the same kinds of development that are prevalent now throughout Linden Hills, White Oaks, and other areas of Edina. The west villa that is proposed for this site is simply not appropriate for this lot, and it's detrimental to my privacy and living experience at 4626 France. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Catherine Winston, and I am the neighbor south of this proposed setup. On that, if you can still see that graph, just to confirm that those townhouses are built on double lots with a shared driveway, not on single, double lots. My house, which has the approximate, I went out and measured it tonight, has the approximate dimensions as each one of these villas. My house is L-shaped. This summer in my house, 2 levels, basement is not completed. I entertained my daughter, her 3 children, her 3 cats, and her dog. That is in the space that is less than what they are asking for in each of these villas. The west villa, again, would be if you drive down France Avenue, you look at my house, they're asking for a second house of my dimensions, actually larger, be built below my existing house. And these are not flat lots. They precipitously drop. The other thing I wanted to address, I am a qualified master water steward in the Minnehaha watershed. Each one of these buildings is 1,400 square feet. That's the footprint. And in each 1-inch rainfall, there will be 884 gallons that need to go somewhere. So a rain garden is only meant to capture the first inch of rainfall. That's where your pollutants are. Any more than a 1-inch rainfall will exit the rain garden. So they have, the thing they sent out was so small, I couldn't see what the dimensions of the rain garden were, But for a 12-inch rain garden, that means the deepest point of the rain garden, for that size building, this is just for one, should be approximately 11 feet by 11 feet. And that is not taking into account if there are any other downspouts. Again, I reiterate, if there's more than a 1-inch rainfall, which is 884 gallons coming off the one roof, that's heading west towards Scott's house. And we know we've had more than 1-inch rainfalls around here. So again, of course I'm opposed to this. I lose all sense of privacy. My friends say that my backyard looks like Tuscany. I understand with things that are developed, I'm going to lose some privacy, obviously. No one's lived there for 30 years. But again, the house that's there now is slightly smaller than mine. They're asking for 2 houses to be put on a lot, which is going to go, one house is going to be put on a lot that's going to be 104 feet. It's 59 feet long. The lot is 48 feet, and the width of those villas is going to be 24 feet. So my house duplicated is what they're asking for. If this goes through, that means every other house that remains between 47th and 45th that's either zoned 1 or 2 can add another house behind it. And that's going into all of those people in White Oaks who are not going to be pleased about that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi there. Excuse me. Hi there. My name is Ann Tofteland, and I live at 4615 Meadow Road, which is my backyard would be southwest of the property. I'm a neighbor to Scott and a backyard neighbor to Catherine. And my family has lived in our house for 22 years. We love our backyard. We all love the wooded area of our neighborhood, and it's such a feature for us. And we are so concerned about the extreme impact on our privacy and our sightlines that we think this proposal would have on us. And we would really love to see our backyards in our neighborhood preserved, especially our backyards as they were intended and as they have been. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Chairman Agnew and Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Goodman, and I live at 4707 Meadow Road. I'm a relatively new resident. I bought in 2017 my small home, which is on the block south of this project. It's not adjacent to it. I bought my small home and invested to renovate it with a plan to age in place there. Thrilled to live in a neighborhood like Edina's White Oaks. It's got a certain character, natural surroundings, woodsiness, strong sense of community and belonging. It's very close to the city of Minneapolis, but not the city of Minneapolis. It's great. I'd like to see the city of Edina make decisions that seek to enhance and improve the character of our neighborhood, and I believe that a single lot with 2 freestanding residences does not fit that character. And I'd be disappointed to see the city approve it and set a precedent for this kind of development in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person tonight who would like to provide testimony? All right, seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. Has anyone dialed in tonight to provide testimony?
We do have one caller who is on the line. If they would like to provide testimony, they need to hit *1. Once they do that, they will be able to speak, and we just again ask that they state their name and their full address for the record. So I would, based on the delay, I would give a little bit of time just to see if this person does enter the queue.
Thank you. Again, if you are dialed in and you would like to provide public testimony, please press *1.
So this caller has not entered the queue, so if you're comfortable moving forward, you can feel free. Oh, I'm sorry, they did just enter the queue. So if the operator could please unmute their line. Karen Willie is the name we have, and again, please state your name and address for the record.
I would just like to echo the concerns of my neighbors about the kind of neighborhood that White Oaks is, the importance of retaining that, the fact that these two houses on this lot seem to be way too big, particularly in terms of height, for the property that they're being built on. And I think it would have a pretty significant deleterious effect on particularly the properties that are surrounding it. So I was...
Caller has not entered the queue, so if you're comfortable moving forward, you can feel free. Oh, I'm sorry, they did just enter the queue.
Please continue, Karen.
Karen Willie, Ms. Willie, if you still can hear us, please turn down the volume on your computer or TV that you're watching us on, and we're hearing the echo of that.
Karen Willie, I live at 4701 Meadow Road. To echo the concerns of my neighbors about the kind of neighborhood that White Oaks is, the importance of retaining that, the fact that these two houses
I believe we're having the same issue again.
to be way
So we do need, Ms. Willie, we do need you to turn down the volume on your computer or TV so we don't hear it as an echo in the chambers.
Have a pretty significant deleterious effect on particularly the properties that are surrounding it. So I was...
That might have been the end of her testimony then.
Yeah, Ms. Willie, if you're still there, please, again, if you can turn down the volume on your computer or TV that you're watching it on. There's a pretty significant delay, and we're hearing the echo of it. So you are live to the chambers whenever you are ready to speak, but again, please turn down the volume on your computer.
Okay, I do believe that the voice we were hearing was a replay, a 1-minute delay of her testimony. So thank you for calling in. Were there any other callers in the queue tonight?
No, we do not have any.
All right. Shall we close the public hearing?
I move to close public hearing.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. I'd now like to open it up to the commissioners to provide any comments. Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Carrie, so with the current zoning, what's the rear yard setback? Is it 35 with current zoning?
With current zoning, the setback would be 25 feet.
25. So this is actually imposing
A greater setback, correct.
So under the current conditions, somebody has the right to come in and build at 25 feet from the rear lot line?
They would.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had right now.
Commissioner Bennett.
Are we discussing or posing questions, or is this just, yeah?
I felt like we were done with questions. If you have a question,
No.
please feel free. But if you'd like to...
No, I can kick off some discussion.
Yeah, please.
So, address the elephant in the room. So this is a tough one, clearly, because there's, I guess, general support for this product as well as what it looks like and where it's located by many people in the community. But the challenge really is, what the neighbors are like. And I think I think back over the 5 years I've been in this position, usually the toughest decisions we have are where we're up against two worlds, right? So France is kind of this busy corridor that supports more density and R2 kind of offerings. It doesn't need to just be a duplex. It could be, a shared open style like this. But all of these butt up to single family homes too. And that's usually where we have the challenge and what I feel like we're witnessing tonight. I guess my struggle with some of this is what Commissioner Olson brought up is by right, someone could build like an accessory dwelling unit or a large garage 25 feet from that back property line. It wouldn't be great with all the trees and everything else, but someone could do that. And I think there's this precedent set just of how things are. So like as a neighbor, it would be very nice to have lots of trees and open space. And we've seen this happen before where there's an empty lot and someone wants to finally build on it, and you would be upset as a neighbor because you like that open space. But at the same point, someone has a right to use that. So I can see the balance here. In general, I support the offering. I think maybe providing some more relief from that rear property line would be a better thing to, have more support from your neighbors. However far you could pull things from that rear property line would be better in this case. And if that meant moving things a little closer to France, which makes this thing jut out a little more, I wouldn't have a problem with that as much. So that's just some food for thought right now.
Other commissioners?
I'll just follow. Okay. But yeah, so just hearing that anyone, not even just an accessory building, they could have their home up, 25 feet from the rear lot line. So I think they, have the right to, that it is hard because it is beautiful, no doubt. Looking at these pictures, it's gorgeous with the trees, but they do have the right, even under the current zoning, so you're actually getting increased setback with what they're proposing. And I kind of like the idea of having the 2 homes on this lot. But I do want them to, I would recommend that they'd have to meet the rear lot setback required with the rezoning. And also, I don't know if they can provide more of the side yard setback from the north. But if you could, I think I would look at doing that too. But I would support this. I just, again, I think we have to understand what could actually happen there today under the current zoning. So you're actually getting something a little bit that preserves even more. That's my thought.
Thank you. Commissioner Strauss?
Yes, I think Commissioner Bennett and Olson really covered the same things I'm struggling with. It does feel like there's too much building on the lot. So I'm still mulling this over, but I think they both kind of made the points that I think are valid and I'm considering. What I would like to comment is the character of the property owner, their presentation, and the neighbors. I thought it was respectful and well done, and we're not always seeing that. And I think you did your cause a lot of good. I thought it was very respectful and well prepared and well presented on both parts. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Miranda?
Yeah, I'll provide a little personal context for talking about trees and houses behind you and tear downs and such. I live in Morningside, so not far from where this house is, or these houses are. And we've had the house to the south of us, to the west of us, and to the east of us torn down and rebuilt. In each case, basically doing a clear cutting of the lot and taking all the trees down, including 100-year oaks and stuff. There's no ordinances against that at this point, or not major ones anyway. And then the house behind us built within at that 25-foot distance, and so these 2 houses would be 35 feet back because of the zoning that's required here. So I think that you would be getting a better deal than we got at our house. So. in general, I think, as previous commissioners had mentioned, this is overall a good thing. And if you look at our comprehensive plan, which we just spent years updating, this is something that we want along France Avenue. This is a good place for it. Actually, just this week, the final proposed stops for the E-Line BRT were proposed, and so that's going to run along France Avenue, and so that'll be a fast bus line going along there. So it's sort of the ideal spot for actually this kind of development. And so, but I do agree with what other commissioners have said and what the staff have recommended, that some of the variances make a lot of sense. You can only build a very narrow house in the existing boundaries of the lot lines. But I think sticking to the 35-foot setback in the back is the right thing to do here. And what was the other one? The lot coverage. I also think we should stick to the lot coverage percentage. Thank you.
Commissioner Berube.
Yeah, I think I actually don't have much to add. I think the argument has been pretty well laid out. On the one hand, we've been looking for multifamily housing. It's in the comprehensive plan. This is the perfect spot for it. And the design, I think, is really a quality design. I do appreciate what the neighbors are saying. And that's really, it's really a tough situation. But I think, one of the biggest arguments is someone could come in today and not need a variance and build something even more imposing. So I think overall the balance would be to allow this to go through with the change to the lot coverage as well as the side yard the back setback.
Commissioner Bartling, anything from you? All right. I think everyone, provided some really great feedback. And I think what's important for me to note too is I wouldn't support the creation of these two villas just anywhere. I think that the uniqueness of this location, especially being just directly south of those townhomes, makes me feel like it actually does fit in nicely with this area. I also do see the hardship of the lot, and so I think that image that Director Teague showed was really telling of there's maybe a very unique thin home that could be built. I think regardless, we would see a variance for the setbacks, which means that kind of no matter what, there's going to be a house near on both sides. I do think that the call out for the tree protection plan was really important, especially for the trees that are on the properties, not this property in particular, but this property as well. But hearing from the neighbors of the trees on their own properties, I guess Director Teague, I don't know what is possible from that perspective if this were to pass, if we could put in a contingency plan on that. Okay. So that to me would be very important, is to see something as a tree protection plan. But again, thank you all for coming in and sharing your testimony. It is really important to this process. Anyone else? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I could jump in if this might help. So the staff recommendation under the approval section is for both A and B. So the approval includes the two variances that staff did support, and B is the denial of the rear yard setback and building coverage. And then I would suggest in the conditions, in addition to condition number 2, where we're suggesting that they need to submit a construction management plan, including within that construction management plan would be a tree protection plan.
So just to clarify, what would the process be if we supported the recommendations from staff for the applicant and or neighbors?
Including both A and B motions?
Yeah.
So it would be recommend that the City Council approve the request for the preliminary rezoning from R1 to PRD2, the side yard setback variances from 20 feet to 7 feet and 15 feet, and the lot size variance from 7,300 square feet to 5,016 square feet. And then approval is subject to the findings that are listed, and there are 7 of them. And the B recommendation is that the City Council deny the proposed rear yard setback variance and the building coverage variance based on the 2 findings listed there. And then, so the approval is subject to those 8 conditions. And I might add that condition 8 is a recommendation of the building official regarding a fire sprinkler system. He's not saying that's a mandate, it's more of a suggestion. But then I would add to condition number 2, the submittal of the construction management plan would include a tree protection plan.
Okay, so I wish we could just say, can we just say what you just said?
Sure.
I mean, because I'm looking at this because I see where you're saying the 8 conditions, but that's underneath B. So I'm a little confused. So yeah, if we could.
It's the approval is subject to those conditions.
All right. I move to support what Carrie just said. I mean, unless somebody else can do it better, right, because I want to, I want to deny the rear yard and the building coverage, but approve everything else. Okay.
So what I'm hearing as your motion is recommending the City Council approve the request for the preliminary rezoning from R1 to PRD2, the preliminary plat, the side yard setback variance from 20 feet to 7 and 15 feet, and a lot size variance from the 7,300 square feet to the 5,016 square feet. And then also recommend the City Council deny the proposed rear yard setback variance and building coverage variance, subject to the conditions listed, the 8 plus the tree protection.
Right, with the addition of the tree protection, is that what it was? Yeah. So that's my motion.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Carrie, is the chair's restating of the motion accurate? I mean, also what?
Yes, yes, and sorry for the confusion. I should have had the conditions under the approval.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's confusing, but
But
yes.
I think I did follow, I did follow the chair's run through, and that was correct. So I would be comfortable acting on that language, so.
We would still need a second on the motion.
My second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Commissioner Bennett.
So just to clarify, the tree protection plan, isn't that standard operating procedure for this project anyways?
It is. It
Okay.
really is, yeah.
So I don't know if we need to add that because that is I just want to make sure people understand the city has a standard to protect the trees on the property and the neighbors too.
We do, but I like the belt and suspenders approach.
All right. Okay. Okay.
All right, so all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so this is being recommended to the City Council per the motion that was presented. So thank you to the applicant, and thank you to everyone who provided testimony tonight. All right. So next on the agenda, it is our final public hearing tonight, which is a site plan review with variances for 6500 Berry Road, and we have Director Teague presenting tonight.
Okay, thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. This is another one that did go through sketch plan a few months ago. Property is located in the medical district in the greater Southdale area. It is just east and south of Southdale Fairview, or now known as M Health. It's a small lot on the corner of Berry Road and 65th. Property is zoned planned office district, but it is guided in our comprehensive plan for regional medical use. Despite the site being so small, there is a height maximum of up to 12 stories on this site. That's the area in red. Existing on the site is a little over 16,000 square foot medical office building. This is what it looks like today. Parking underneath. The applicant would tear that down and build a new 24,000 square foot medical office building and surgery center. It's a rendering of what the project would look like. This is Berry Road. Again, they did go through sketch plan, and some of the most significant changes would be that streetscape and adding the windows to try to engage the street. You can see the changes that were made there. So what's requested here is a site plan review, front street setback variance from 30 feet to 18 feet. And recall that within the Southdale district, we now measure setbacks from the building to the curb as opposed to the lot line. Side yard setback variance from 20 feet to 10 feet. A building coverage variance from 30% to 45%, floor area ratio variance, and a parking stall variance from 120 stalls to 73 stalls. That's based on the current ordinance. You recall the draft ordinance that you've worked on over the last many, many months. That ordinance would have required 80 stalls for this project. So they would still be requesting a variance. Here's a look at the site plan. There would be access to the north off 65th and off of Berry Road. Part of the reason for bringing it closer to the street to the north is there would be 2 layers of parking. So coming off of Berry Road, it begins to go downward into the garage. So that distance is needed to bring that first level down. This is a look at the required setbacks. So they're close, but again, with providing that access, they did need to shift to the north. Building would be brick, stone with metal panels. And the applicant can go through this in a little more detail. But this is a look from the west side of the building and 65th. Again, you see the 2 levels of parking above 2 levels of the office space and surgery space. So the primary issue is the proposal reasonable to justify those variances that are requested. In this case, staff believes they are. We did have Wankin Associates do a parking and traffic study. The study concludes that there will be no impact to the roads where we need roadway improvements. And the parking study concluded that 73 spaces were needed to support the proposed uses here. The original site plan that was submitted had 70 parking spaces provided, but they were able to reconfigure the parking area a little bit to add those 3 spaces. So what they're requesting is supported on site. We believe that the proposed setback, building coverage, and floor area ratio variances are reasonable. Practical difficulty here is based on that small size of the lot and the narrow width. The proposed building is only slightly larger than what's out there today. And given structures in the area, property values, we believe that the proposed building is reasonably sized, and it's far below actually what the height would allow for this on this site. This lot is the narrowest in the district. There's a lot to the south that is the same width, but it's combined with that larger, and I'll show a graphic of it. It's combined with a larger property. There's a large surface parking lot to the south and to the west, which gives this building the appearance that it does sit on a larger lot. And the proposed sidewalk along Berry would be an improvement in this area. There's a residential area to the north. This sidewalk would provide a safer walking path to Southdale itself. So here's that lot to the south that you can see is narrow, but it's been combined with this 3,400 lot, and you can see the parking all around the site. I should mention too, Ed Terhar, who did the parking and traffic study, is with us online. So if you have any questions for him, he is available. Again, you can see the variety of building height. There's a tall apartment to the north. It's a 5 to 6 story medical office or office building to the south. We did have some better together comments about the trees. I believe there was just the one. But in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the site plan and the variances as requested, subject to the findings and conditions that are outlined in your staff report. And with that, I can stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Teague. Any questions? Commissioner Strauss.
Yeah, Father Teague, I was reading the architectural field office memo, Rick Johnson, and towards the end of it, he shows a rendering flipping the building. I think, so the entrance on the south end being to the north end, is that? And I don't know, did staff have any kind of reaction to
so
the point he was making there?
The report, his comments came in quite late last week, so I did send them to the applicant and asked him to address, how they can or can't meet those recommendations. So it's probably for a question for the applicant, and as far as can they make those things happen. So what he was suggesting is the main entry to the south here be moved more to the corner, the intersection of 65th and Berry. And he had some concern, and suggested that the trash area be moved to the south side of the building as well.
That's fine, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Berube.
Yeah, thank you. So will you refresh our memory? What was the discussion around the parking lot? So this building sits basically in a big parking lot, but that parking lot's not attached to this building. Correct. However, every time I go by there, that huge parking lot is basically empty. It's just this flat, empty, ugly thing. And so it does seem like this is such prime land. I'm really surprised. It seems like it's so underutilized, and then it's sitting next to this huge, ugly, flat parking lot. It feels like a waste. And I know we talked a little bit about that in the sketch plan, but will you remind me what the story is with that parking lot and why this can't be better utilized?
Yeah, as you can see from this aerial, that parking lot, it's wide open. So why it's underutilized at this time, I'm not really sure. When we talked about the shortage of parking, they were considering, approaching other property owners in the area to provide whatever parking they may need. I'm not sure if they've had those discussions, but so that parking field, let's see here. Goes with this 3,400 building to the south, the 6-story building. And here's another graphic that shows, you can see it's mostly vacant space.
Yeah. I mean, because this is an area in our Southdale plan that this is the area where you'd concentrate the heights so that you wouldn't necessarily need the height other places. And so
you could,
you don't want height for height's sake, but this would be the place to have it if you're going to have it.
It could, given the size of that lot, a lot could be done there.
And I know the constraint was that you weren't able to have enough parking, but clearly there's enough parking there.
Just held in different property ownership, so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Teague? I have just one question. Can you speak to whether there is any street parking in this area or what the public transit system looks like in this area at a high level?
Ooh, yeah, that I don't know off the top of my head if street parking is available. I don't know. I can take a look and see if I can find somewhere.
Okay. We can look into that, and maybe head shakes in the audience lead me to believe that maybe there is not street parking, so thank you. Would love a confirmation of that. Okay, should we go to our applicant's
yes, please.
Proposal then? All right, thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commission members. My name is Don Rolfe. I'm with Pope Architects, and with me tonight is Corey Rodriguez, our lead designer, Alex Young with MSP Commercial, and Patrick Sarver with Civil Site Group, the civil engineer. And as Director Teague mentioned, we went through the site sketch process, and I think you folks are familiar with the project, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful. So no official presentation, just here for questions.
We can go through the images that Director Teague presented if you've got questions on those. There's numerous reports, obviously, as part of the packet. We can review some of that information if there's questions there.
Okay, just, I think it's okay. I just wanted to confirm.
Okay, sure. And Commissioner Strauss, I could address the comment about the architectural review comments and the main entrance at the corner of 65th and Berry. And we did take a look at that early on in design, but again, trying to maximize the parking, it made the most sense to enter the building straight from both sides. If we move the entrance up to the front and the trash to the back, we would have to have two entrances to the building on the one side and essentially lose potentially half a dozen parking stalls. So that's the direction we went at this point.
Just quickly, and that makes complete sense. I'm just saying, architectural field offices' opinion tend to get a lot of attention. So, be ready for any of those suggestions that come up.
No, yeah, we appreciate
They're going to want to know, what your rationale is. But good, thank you.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Berube, I think you had a question. Did you want to direct that towards the applicant now?
Yeah. So you heard what I said about the parking?
Yes.
And again, there's no sense, this is not about trying to get more height in that area necessarily.
Right.
But unless it's useful. And having this only be 3 stories, if I recall correctly, it was because there was a constraint due to parking, which seems strange considering all the parking. And I know that's not necessarily your lot, but walk us through that and your rationale for having. I'm just trying to figure out how that can be financially feasible to have a 3-story building when you could have a taller building.
Well, and just the use of the space, the building, warranted the 73 stalls for what the 2-story office and surgery center would warrant. And there's obviously a business model that plays in the factor there. Alex, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that piece, but the owner was looking for a certain use and looking at the space program and his needs. And we had identified the square footages needed for that and the parking, and this is the size of the building that that we came up with. So and to have an agreement with adjacent property owner, you don't know how long that's going to last. So we really didn't want to entertain that.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
If I may. Mm-hmm. Alex Young, MSP Commercial. The building to our southwest and the parking for it, which is immediately to our west and to our south, does meet that building's parking requirement It's a very large medical office building. We have seen, as a healthcare developer, parking demands reduce over the years. And obviously, we're showing that here with our project, a much reduced parking ratio than you're accustomed to seeing. I suspect that in the future, when that building is ready for redevelopment, that they will also require far less parking than they have today for the requirement when they built it. And I would expect that you all would expect from them that they try to better utilize the space on their lot. Like we are doing on ours, we're actually increasing the green space from what's there today and reducing the amount of impervious area on the lot. I would expect that you'll expect the same thing from them. When we look at their lot, it seems underutilized as well. We don't know that ownership group, but at some point they're likely to redevelop that spot.
Did you have any more questions, Commissioner Brody? All right. Any other commissioners?
Well, I guess I just have a comment that, with Mick, with the architectural field office memo, I mean, that was one of the things that 65th and Barry, that is kind of a main intersection. So I guess I'm trying to look at the visuals to see what that corner looks like, Barry, and let's see. Yeah, if you've got.
Yeah, you should be able to just scroll.
Because I think, if we could, like even where you have that little patio area in the back, if that, some of that activity could be brought to that corner. And, yeah, so I think that's what you just scrolled by was what Mick is trying to the reason to flip is to.
Right.
And.
So if we look at, if you can see the cursor on the screen, so on the north side, off of 65th, right now we have our trash area inside the building and have access to that. Oh, thank you. So we have the trash area and access to that on the north side. So we would have to move that down to this corner. Mm-hmm. And then adjacent to that, we would have to have entrance into the building itself. So roughly a 24-foot wide opening. So we're essentially losing 30 to 40 feet in this corner where we wouldn't have parking, and we would actually have more blacktop and impervious surface to create another access into the building here. So the combination of those two, losing parking and increasing impervious, we didn't feel that was the right way to go.
Okay, so the main entrance couldn't be moved to the north. You couldn't. I mean, I know I'm redesigning your whole interior of your building, but it does kind of feel like the back of the building is facing, an important intersection and an important street. What's happening, activity.
Right. Well, and it's a completely enclosed building. There are garage doors at that point. It's not open. There's not a trash enclosure, wood screened wall, that kind of thing. So
I get that. It's a big garage door. And this is supposed to become kind of a primary pedestrian and I know you're losing parking if you would do it. I look at that lot and it seems like we could do shared parking so easily. I don't know. I guess I'd push a little bit more to make that corner a bit more of the main entrance and pop out versus just a garage door. But those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, Dawn, I think she's saying, flip it on its access point. And, instead of and you could potentially have your ramp down to the garage, but why isn't the main entry on the corner, totally flipping and getting, you might, and then maybe there is opportunity to shift that a little bit to get more to where your red box is.
Well, so we would have to, I mean, we wouldn't want the trash area on the north side as well with the garage door opener, so that would have to move to the south. So this trash area would have to move down here.
Right. Could it be something, though, that's actually on the lower level, or the first level, I guess, of the parking inside the garage?
I think access to that from a trash, hauling truck would be difficult to go down, drive down one level to access a dumpster and get back out. I think that would be a big challenge for them to do that.
I've seen it.
I understand what you're saying. And I wonder if there's a way to architecturally enhance that northeast corner of the building without actually having the entry point there on the corner. Because like Don said, if we flip that entry point south and that trash dumpster south, then we have to have a drive lane added for that because we can't have the dumpster down underneath the building. We could never wheel the dumpster up the ramp. But there are ways to architecturally enhance that northeast corner to make it read like an entry, but not actually have the entry there. The other reason that the entry point works a little better further south is for patient drop-off and pick-up out of the main entry versus having it right on the corner. Those are some of the things that we considered when we first started laying this site out. I think architecturally, we're always trying to have entrances on corners if we can and hold corners with buildings. I think it's good architectural principle. But for layout purposes on this, we just had to shift that entry point a little bit further south. But if you're looking for those architectural details, we can work on that for you.
Well, if you could get us to the one rendering while I talk.
Which one do you want to get to?
If you could go to the main entrance. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Corey. I don't know if this is working, but I do want to point out that the building design is somewhat symmetrical. So even though we don't have a rendering perspective showing the other corner of the building, since we focus on the main entrance, I would like to point out that it is really similar to what you're seeing right now in this rendering. The main difference being that on the side, instead of having more fenestration, we do have the two overhead garage doors. So we are anchoring the building on both sides and on that corner architecturally through the design. I think we could potentially enhance the look of those garage doors as well. They could become glassy doors that kind of mimics fenestration, if you guys think that would enhance that pedestrian experience on that side.
I think that would help, and maybe potentially some more relief as well. Right now it feels pretty flat. Do you have a rendering of that, the other corner?
We don't, unfortunately. The other corner does also have that overhang canopy, creating some interest, but since our footprint is pretty small, we were trying to not push and pull too much in the building shell and envelope.
I was just thinking that maybe that's probably the best that we have, where you can kind of see the sides.
Mm-hmm.
I just have another quick comment or question. I guess it's a question to you guys too, because I wasn't here for the sketch plan, but did you discuss continuing the sidewalk along 65th? There was that? It looks like there's no sidewalk on that little piece.
Yeah, we are continuing the sidewalk as far as we can. On 65th within our property. And then obviously on Berry Road too, we're all continuing the sidewalk there.
So just to which direction am I going? West, where that tree and those bushes are. If you come the other way across the, there you go. Is that not your
Well,
property?
I think the property line is right here, is right by that
Okay.
tree, so there's really not much there.
Oh, okay.
I get maybe this is a better image on the plan view itself.
Right. So we still have the ability, where your landscaping is, you'd still be able to extend the sidewalk, or are we
I think in
gonna-
the future,
is that a
if you-
requirement? Okay, okay, good. We're good, thank you.
Oh, sorry, my mic's on.
The 2D.
Yeah, I think actually part of, like, personally, so there's the dynamic that we're talking about to improve the corner. However, I think it's also creating confusion with not having an entry and then having the same kind of accentuation for the entry and the corner. And really, maybe, I think, like, if you're looking at the north elevation, I don't think that wants to be that red brick. That wants to be a box of whatever that other material is, metal panel, or no? Oh, that's brick. What's the brown?
That's the metal panel.
Brown's metal panel?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so it wants to all be brick on that side. And then if it has to be garage doors, you know, something with more fenestration, as you were suggesting, and some playfulness with that. And then, like, that door with the glass there, that becomes confusing as an entry if you have an overhang and you're calling out. So that almost doesn't want that call out on that end if that truly isn't your entry. And then calling it out then where the entry actually is, and even accentuating that at a higher level. And again, on the way this reads, almost not having that stone, well, maybe no, that's probably fine, and that's harder to read on 2D without the, and frankly, with the colors, I even see, I don't know, the metal panel almost wants to be a black or a darker gray with the tone that you're carrying versus the brown, but that's a whole nother story. But talking about entry, you know, I don't mind this end piece or this being here, and I do understand what Alex is saying about a safer drop-off, because if a car's at the corner and someone comes around the corner, there's someone there. So I get where that makes sense. But again, I think there's that, it needs a little, if we could do something, maybe even there's something to do at that corner that make it stronger. Because we're already going to have a safety issue with cars going in and out there. But then, you know, really accenting where this entry truly is and taking away the accent from this side.
So we can work on this north entry a little bit.
Yeah, it almost wants to be a pure, like, brick box on that end to me, but without any of the black. And then fenestration and something to do, and then maybe there's actually vegetation or something actually that coincides with that and softens it.
And we do have an extensive landscape plan in the packet, if you had a chance to take a look at that, but we have taken, and you may have noticed what we're doing with the current landscape. Our goal was to keep all the existing trees at the perimeter of the property, but after talking with the city forester, understand that some of those trees are already in bad shape and slated to be removed. So, and wanting to add a sidewalk at 65th and Berry, those trees are currently in the boulevard where that sidewalk would go. So the combination of those two, brought us to take those trees down, but actually enhance our landscape plan. So I want to make sure everybody understood that.
Commissioner Bennett.
I just have a couple comments quick. Regarding orientation and where things are facing, the part I support about its current layout is at least just the outdoor gathering space being on the south side of the building. It'll get more sun, it'll have more energy versus being shrouded by the building on the north side. However, as we're all thinking toward the future, I mean, it seems like this building is oriented where you're seeing it from the south, which is like an open view right now. But if and when these other properties develop around, I mean, there's a chance that that south side gets completely shrouded, and now you have your front of your building facing another building, or whatever could, build up close to it on that south and west end. And then, and then at that point, you would have wanted the front of this building to really be on that north side, on that corner. So I can see where, Mick Johnson and others are trying to get it to work where the front does seem like that corner, and to me that does seem like the more logical choice. So I don't know, I'm saying I'm kind of stuck in this balance too, because it just doesn't seem quite right now. It seems like if you were walking down that sidewalk now, if this gets constructed or in the future, like you're walking along the backside of a building, and that really shouldn't be the feel. That doesn't match the experience we're trying to create in the area. So
well, I think that there would be, some give and take with that, as I've mentioned, before too, of taking the trash from the north side, bringing it down to the southeast, and then creating a 24-foot drive lane, and we have to take our stair and elevator and components and move those up as well. So, the take on that would be losing at least a half a dozen parking stalls, to move those components down here, along with, again, losing some green space. We've got a patio that would move up here, covering some green space, and then a drive lane to get in and out of the parking area, and an area for the trash and deliveries to come in. So I think that's what we'd be taken away from.
I understand. I think at the end of the day of which one I would choose, I would choose the more activity and at the northeast corner of people gathering, because eventually people will be walking by and it will be an active sidewalk, and so that's just where I'm going, but I figured I'd share those comments quick.
I want to talk a little bit about parking. I know there was an extensive parking study that was included, and I do believe that you have your parking consultant dialed in potentially. Would you be able to speak to when and how often that peak parking estimate of 73 stalls would be needed?
Well, I don't know if Ed is on the phone, if he wants to speak to that.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, that peak it occurs during a typical weekday, and it would occur during the late morning time, early afternoon time. So that midday time the peak would be occurring at that time when the most of the appointments are occurring, or when there's overlap.
Thank you. I remember from our conversation, I think it was back in April when you were here previously, maybe it was May or June. I'm sorry, I don't know the month exactly. But I remember hearing that you were estimating potentially 20 of the stalls would be used for staff, which would mean here that 53 stalls would be needed for patients at any given time. Can you speak to whether, just your gut, does that feel accurate? If there's only 20 members of staff on duty, that there would be 53 patients that would also be seen at that time?
Well, currently we've got a surgery center on the top level, and then clinic space on the second level. So the body GI group would take the whole third floor and a portion of the second for a clinic. So the combination of those two, would be a little bit more than half of those 73 stalls, and the remainder would be for the other tenants, which we're assuming would be a clinic type operation. So with the surgery center, patients are typically dropped off and then picked up again after the procedure, a 2 or 3 hour procedure. So that's why we don't feel we need more than that, because you won't have people waiting in a large waiting space. So based on staff counts and patient counts, that's where we're coming up with those numbers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go to our public hearing. Oh, all right. Let me get my script. All right. So we will now hear from residents who would like to provide testimony. So if you are participating remotely, call in now to 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 1477052. An operator will ask you for your name and street address and put you in queue to speak after you press *1. We will hear from those in the room first and then move on to those on the phone. You may speak for up to 3 minutes. After giving your full name and address, the green light on your podium will turn on. When you have 30 seconds remaining, the yellow light will turn on, and when you are out of time, the red light will turn on. And then staff will let anyone know who calls in if they have gone over their 3 minutes. And so it looks like we have someone here in the audience. Thank you for your patience, and please take it away.
My name is Linda Schmitz. I live at 6483 Berry Road. I've lived there since '94. As for the trash, there is currently a location where the trash bin can be put in the south end of the parking lot. So there is an existing spot for trash there. If they want to put garage doors on the corner of 65th Street, I don't agree with that, because you have residents living across the street. Who wants to watch cars go in and out with lights and stuff affecting whatever they're doing in their living rooms and stuff, in their bedrooms? Because it's apartment building across the street on 65th. Because on 65th, they're adjacent to the hospital, and on the other side, on the odd side of Berry Road, that's the colony of Edina. Those are all pretty much owner-occupied units. And they're, so, and then there's the traffic that goes on 65th. There's a lot of that goes to and from the hospital. Plus there's a daycare that's across the street, behind the other buildings across the street from this existing building here. And so there's a lot of traffic from that, from both ways on Berry Road and on 65th Street. So I don't think we really need any more traffic on 65th Street. And the thing is that too, with the picture that was given here, we had no perspective of where's Berry Road on here. Because there's, it just says southeast, and it's just like, okay, so I'm looking at the back side of the building. So it's like, I didn't really know what I'm looking at. And there is a 6 bus that goes by Southdale, so that would be like a block away. Plus Southdale Center has the bus trans that goes into there, so that's like be about a block and a half, 2 blocks away from where this location is. I mean, it's a nice looking building, but we don't need traffic getting snarled on 65th because people going in and out of that garage, because that's got enough traffic on it already. And like I say, otherwise the design looks pretty nice, but with looking at this, I had no way of knowing how it's actually situated, because there's nothing on here that says Berry Road or 65th Street. And right now, currently, there are 60 stalls under the garage, because I actually went over there and counted. But there is currently an existing cement slab for trash that's on the very south end, that's already existing. So
Wonderful.
I guess that's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Is there anyone else in person who would like to provide public testimony? No. I will go to the phone lines then. Has anyone dialed in tonight?
We do not have anyone on the phone currently and haven't in some time.
I will give it just a little bit longer. All right, has anyone else dialed in? All right. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to approve or move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed. So now I do want to open it back up for questions. Does any commissioner, I'll say questions or discussion? Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah. As I mentioned, just kind of the balancing act of, what's proposed to us. I think it seems off, and the more I think about it, I feel like there's viable alternatives to even have both entrances on the south side, or I just feel like things should be concentrated there as we look to the future, especially if the site to the south and west develops and there becomes structure there. It just makes sense to activate that northeast corner with the outdoor gathering place and even having the drop-off entrance closer to that side. That's just where I'm at. I agree with what the residents saying. I don't think you need to have any entrance right on 65th. I think there's ways to get around that. So having lights coming in and out of there, and it does just look like the back end of a building's facing them, and there's no good reason or compelling reason, in my opinion, that it couldn't be the other way around.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Olson?
Sure, I agree. I just, you can pretty it up or, work on that north elevation, but it's the back of the building and that should be the front. And so I would not approve this as it's proposed.
Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah, and in addition to those comments, there was some discussion about where transit was in the area, and I just discussed on the last proposal that the E line is going to be going down France Avenue. It's going to be going through this area too, replacing the 6. So there are actually a number of bus stops in the area that will be removed, and that basically the only bus stops nearby will be at Southdale Hospital and at the Southdale Transit Center. So to get from Berry Street to a bus, you would want to be walking along 65th Street. So that just builds upon the kind of things that we're talking about, where you don't want what looks like a warehouse, or a garage facing 65th Street. So I agree that really should be changed.
Can I add one thing? There's also a bus stop. The bus goes up 66th Street and stops at the corner of Berry.
Yeah, and I think that might be changing. So thank you, Commissioner Miranda. Any other commissioners?
Just to see if that was something that you looked at, because I'm just kind of sketching the ideas that all the commissioners are talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. And by doing this, we would lose those parking stalls.
How many why do you lose them?
Well, right now, we have our stair and elevator forward.
Is there a public place that we could place that so that everyone could view? Thank you.
I should have sketched it better. Yeah, so your core is there, but you could move the core to the back essentially. And so you don't have a secondary entrance. And I assume, Alex, and maybe the central core maybe makes more sense for a development purpose, but if you moved your core back, and you could exit off the back and have a sidewalk or something there, I think. And then you have your main elevator core.
Yeah, I think there's maybe two different components to the conversation. One is moving the pedestrian entry up to the corner. The other is taking the overhead doors of the garage access, which currently come into the drive lane, and moving that also to the south. It's when we do that we have the loss of stalls. If we move the pedestrian entry up to the northeast corner, that can be done. We may lose a stall or two, but not much. But it's when we do that, plus move the garage door away from the drive lane itself and have to take out the stalls to enter the garage, that we increase the impervious surface on the site, and we lose parking stalls. So that's what we were looking at. As we designed, everything just started to kind of gravitate the way it did, because we just don't have any room on the site to do much. And we engaged the city's traffic engineer and parking study engineer to help us to make sure that what we were presenting was adequate.
And so in that study, how many total spots did you lose?
In the study that Ed came up with, it was, I believe, 73 stalls. And we had 70 stalls because we had increased the handicap parking over the minimum code requirement because of the healthcare facility. But we reduced the handicap stalls to then meet the 73 stalls that were required under Ed's report. So we're right at what the city's traffic engineering consultant is suggesting that we have for the project.
And Carrie, what is I guess, as far as what they're having to meet for their parking standards, is there variance that they could ask for on that to show that, in showing their studies that this is what, that's what they could get with, also in order to maintain what is right for the comprehensive plan of Edina?
So this is more for zoning, not so much the comprehensive plan for the number of parking stalls required. But the code requires 120 based on the square footage of the building and the facility within it. Ed is saying 73 stalls. So they're already asking for a variance if the city is comfortable approving a variance less than that, where parking, according to the traffic consultant, would spill out onto the street or somewhere else. That's a decision for ultimately the city council to make.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, just with the narrow nature of the building and just looking at access, I mean, so if you're coming into the lower level or even the upper level, it's basically a straight away in, correct? So if it's full, is there going to be an indication to not go in there just because it'd be harder to turn around, or is there going to be like a dedicated turnaround lane? And if so, just that theme, I mean, maybe for the lower level parking, you could descend farther and actually come in more toward the corner, and you could come into the building a little different as well. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, the lower level parking, so you go around a very steep ramp to then, and as you're going down the ramp, you're turning and going under the building. The lower level ramp will really be designated as staff parking.
Okay.
Right, so we're trying to bifurcate the two parking uses, and so less of a public atmosphere, but still public. The entrance off of 65th from the north, that's really more the patient parking area, both of which have a way to turn around at the end if you need to go out, if it's full. But because we're bisecting these parking, we're hoping that one or the other isn't always full. In other words, we don't have staff competing with patients for parking. We're trying to be mindful of that. so that we were really doing a better job of utilizing 2 different parking fields, so that instruction will be given to patients before they arrive that they are to enter off that entry point, and we will have signage on the site that suggests that.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Olson?
I guess I would just add, I know that the concern is the loss of more parking spaces because you're already reducing what you're required to have, and you're meeting the requirement from what the parking study was saying. But I don't have an issue with that. I mean, I look at that large lot next to you, and I know it's not under your control, but I'm sure there's a way to have a, shared parking agreement, and, you could have overflow parking there, but, yeah. So I understand what you're saying, but I think that I don't have a problem with you losing more stalls.
So I'll reflect a bit on some of my thoughts. I do appreciate the inclusion of sidewalks, but and I wasn't clear from that image if that was a new tree that was being put up on the north west side of the lot, or if that was an existing tree. But if it's a new tree, I wouldn't recommend putting it right where a sidewalk would be extended in the future. And then if this were to be approved by us and by the city council, please use some type of technology to indicate parking availability within the building. I think that there's enough sensors that could be done so someone isn't driving into a garage. But I think overall, I echo the other commissioners in that if I imagine being a patient here, it would feel like I was going in the back of the building, especially understanding now that main, not the underground, the first floor parking is where patients are meant to go. It's not feeling intuitive to me. It feels like I would expect to go down the ramp next to the front door as a patient. So just some things to think about, but I'm not sure it feels right yet for this area. And I think Commissioner Berube, was asking about the sea of parking, and I think you were specifically targeting, why is it underutilized? It's because of the parking mandates that we have in our city that I don't think align to our real needs, which obviously isn't something that you control, but I think that's where my mind goes when I hear what our parking mandates are for this type of a development as well. And so it's just, for me, I'm not, I don't know, not jiving with it as much as what I would hope to see within this area. Commissioner Miranda.
Yeah, so I would say, stepping back for a second, I would say in terms of the variances that are required, I think this is an excellent project. I think, the setback variances are perfectly fine. This side yard setback, building coverage variance, floor area ratio, I think all those are fine. So in terms of the basic project, I think this is an excellent project. It'll be great for our city. I agree with Commissioner Olson that I'd be willing to recommend to City Council that we increase the parking stall variance so that we can have that better entrance on the front and the better facade on the front, and also make sure that that sidewalk goes the full width of the property. And that's kind of where I stand, I suppose, on that. Thanks.
I guess I can add something about the north entrance. And one thing, if you can't figure out a way to move the entrances with the garage doors, maybe you can figure out a way to get like a vine or really tall plants so at least looks better when you're walking by. And maybe that will help make it not seem like the main entrance because it's a wall of plants. Then you'd go to the other entrance that's more clearly an entrance. So I just think that's something, if you can't find another way, that'd be a good way to do it.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Olson.
I'll make a motion to deny, which could, we'll see where that goes, but sorry, I just lost. I move to deny. Sorry, I wasn't ready. Sorry, somebody else told me. The site plan review with variances at 6500 Berry Road, based on the orientation of the building. I guess, can I do that? I don't know, what am I?
Yeah, so we need to come up with some pretty detailed findings. The variance criteria is not met. The configuration of the building on the site is not appropriate. Something to that extent.
That's where I have
If there's others.
struggle with this, because I'm fine with the variances and
But so they're asking for variances, and so we have to.
Okay. I'm going to withdraw what I just started.
So it might be one to pose to the applicant. It kind of sounds like we're moving toward a variance denial. Maybe the applicant would like to request a table and redesign and come back, or ask for a decision tonight and they could take their chances at the city council.
Yes, what would you prefer?
I think maybe it's a hybrid as a suggestion, that it be approved, but with the, echoing what you said, that it be approved with the understanding that the entry point would be moved down to the south, and that we would have that slightly reduced parking ratio from where we're at today. That would still allow us to move forward with what we have and work on some redesign ideas prior to the city council meeting.
So your preference is that we hold a vote, which could end up in either recommending that the city council approve, or we could recommend that the city council deny. But your preference is to have us vote and continue on with that process to present to the city council.
Right, with some of the suggestions that were suggested earlier, I thought that those seemed reasonable.
Thank you.
The only problem with that is we don't see it, and I guess another option would be to table until we can see it again, or if that's just me, if others don't want it. Go ahead.
Well, so again, if we approve it's up to the city council to decide anyway. So I mean, we could put conditions on our approval based off of our recommendations, and whether or not they follow those conditions is up to them. But we could put conditions that support the things you mentioned, like reconfiguring the entrances to both be on the south side. Is that jiving with other commissioners?
I think so.
Well, then I think you should.
And better pedestrian experience. Right, overall, not just for people entering the building. Right.
I mean, I can take a stab at it. Okay, so
Do better than I
Go
did.
for it.
I guess I move approval of the variances as submitted and supported in the staff report, subject to the following conditions. One, reconfiguring the orientation of the building to have both drive entrances on the south side or southern area and the pedestrian access on the north side. Second condition is improving the pedestrian experience around the building, and specifically extending the sidewalk on the northern portion to both property boundaries. And 3, I guess increasing the parking variance amount to accommodate those design changes.
Can I add another one too?
I'm open to that.
I can't remember how we say that.
I think I'm
you have
not
to
a
do it.
Robert's rules. I think we would want a second, and then we would do an amendment to the motion.
There you go.
My second.
Okay. So a friendly amendment would be to specify that the Berry and 65th orientation should be the public facing. I mean, is that part of your, is that should be the, not just the reorientation, but also include like, you know, the public facing activities and entrance. Is that in yours?
I don't know if I
Would say that.
explicitly said that, but that was intended, so that could be added to the first condition.
Would you agree with that, Commissioner Miranda?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So I do not think that I could appropriately repeat that for the motion on the table, but Carrie, do you feel like you have a good understanding of the motion that is currently up for vote?
I think so. Why don't I read that back so I make sure that I do. Maybe I'm changing the order, but so in addition to the 6 conditions that are listed in the report, we would relocate or add entrance on the corner of 65th and Berry, reconfigure the drive entrances so they're on the east side of the building.
South and east.
South and or east, yeah. Improve the pedestrian experience, including extending the sidewalk to the lot lines and increasing the parking variance to accommodate the building reconfiguration. So it'd be those 4 things.
And that included the public facing, having the orientation.
That was the relocate or add an entrance on the main corner.
Say add entrance and
Public facing or public activities or the patio, and make that the front of the building.
Okay, so I am going to put it to a vote unless anyone has any questions about what we are currently voting on. Okay, so all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. All right. So this passes on to the City Council with our recommendation to approve with all of the findings outlined by Carrie.
Correct.
Thank you. Yes. I was a nay. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you for coming up. All right. So we are now on to reports and recommendations. So Carrie, are you going to be presenting for us the zoning ordinance amendments for review tonight?
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. So this is the zoning ordinance amendment that we discussed at your last meeting. It includes regulations on impervious surface, our basement regulations, the 1-foot rule, and a setback definition clarification. So what I thought I'd do is just kind of refresh the commission of each section of the ordinance and then talk about the changes that we made based on your direction at the last meeting. So the first section of the ordinance is the definition section. We have defined impervious surface. And the second definition is clarifying that setback regulation that we adopted in the zoning ordinance last summer. We didn't put it in the definition section, so it's kind of a housekeeping to be clear on how setbacks are measured in the Greater Southdale District. Sections 2 and 5, building coverage is clarified, and the impervious surface lot regulation is created. And the recommendation is a 50% impervious surface regulation for properties in the R1 district. And again, this comes with the work that was done by Commissioner Bennett, Strauss, and Miranda in working with the engineering staff. Sections 3 and 4 eliminate the need for a basement. Currently, the city code requires basements for all single-family homes. That would go away. And the second is an adjustment to the 1-foot rule. as we've experienced over the last several years, we get a lot of variances associated with that 1-foot rule. Primarily if there's a high water table or floodplain issue. The way the ordinance was drafted 2 weeks ago, last time we talked about this, it eliminated the 1-foot rule altogether. So whether you had a wetland issue or not, there was no more 1-foot rule. So based on the discussion we had, we've amended that where it would only apply to where the 1-foot rule, while it's still in effect somewhat, it's only if you're in a 100-year flood elevation or there's some kind of high water table issue. If you have those conditions, the 1-foot rule could be increased to the minimum extent possible as long as the low floor elevation is no higher than 2.5 feet above that low water elevation and the basement ceiling height is no taller than 9 feet. We built in a little bit of wiggle room over the 2-foot rule. We see that a lot with new homes going a little bit higher than the 2-foot. And the 9-foot ceiling height for a basement is it's typically what we've seen in Edina. So the 1-foot rule would still apply to any tear-down rebuild that's not located within that 100-year flood elevation. So I think that addresses the issue that we talked about last month. And then the last section, again, just deals with the setback clarification. So if the commission is comfortable with the draft ordinance, that's not to say that we can't make changes along the lines, but what staff's asking for this evening is that we post it on Better Together and start to solicit feedback based on this draft. We would then set a public hearing for a month or so out and move forward that way. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Director Teague. Any discussion?
I just have a comment with that 1-foot rule. I know that, and it's been mentioned quite a few times that 9 foot is what we're seeing, but an 8-foot ceiling is extremely adequate for any ceiling. I mean, that's what older homes always were, and now, I think, and it's okay if someone wants to build a 15-foot ceiling if they don't have to apply for the variance or their situations with heights. But when this 1-foot rule thing comes into play, I don't see why we would even allow it to be over 8 feet, in my opinion. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Commissioner Bennett.
I can totally agree with you. Just, it seems like obviously we're putting these conditions that would make an uncomfortable situation anyways, and that's adequate.
Commissioner
To
Strauss?
those of you who deal with this, is it really, one explanation is that people need the room because their treadmill they need that extra foot and a half.
8 foot is more than adequate.
Okay.
More than adequate.
I was just wondering if
Yep.
the common use of all this equipment in the basement is changing.
I mean, maybe trapezes and things like that people, I've seen it. But no, for a standard treadmill or a Peloton or you name it, 8 foot is more than adequate. In fact, a lot of places and gyms and hotels are no more than that.
I know that I can't fit on my Peloton in the basement. I hit the ceiling. There's holes in the ceiling.
You have an 8-foot basement?
But now I'm considering. That's I probably have a 6-foot basement. I would have to measure it now. I'll measure it before our public hearing. Any other discussion? Are we all comfortable? Do we actually vote on it, or do we just say, Carrie, sounds good?
Yep, unless you want me to change it to 8 feet, if you'd like me to do that, see if there's a consensus.
I mean, what I worry is as these things continue to increase, that freeboard's going to get higher, levels are going to get higher. You're going to see propped up buildings, and I mean, we've seen certain ones proposed that just didn't look right, and that's just going to get worse. So to maintain a basement like people still want to do. I don't think we need to, like, you're going to have some limitation based off of where you live. So I think 8 feet is a reasonable thing for that. I just don't see why we would say 9 or 10. I think it's good to have a condition in there for that. So I think we do 8, and if someone really wants a 9-foot one, then they come see us.
I would be opposed to 8. I wouldn't be opposed to 9. I think if you were 6.5 feet tall, you'd feel differently. I don't think 9 is excessive, but, I don't think 8 is excessive. 9 should accommodate everybody. But 8, maybe not. I don't want to be in a position to judge what people should or shouldn't do on their own property if they don't need a variance otherwise. Why would we do that?
It's for the variance, though. It's only for the variance. It's not limiting basements to 8 feet everywhere. It's just ones where there'd be a variance that would create heights and things like that. And they're buying the properties knowing they have water tables, knowing that they have these restrictions. So to me, because you can go build a 50-foot basement no, you can't. 20-foot basement and then one level above it if you want, and I don't know. It's happened because people have sport courts and whatever all over Edina. So to me, they can have that, but then they don't build anything above it if that's what they want that extra height for. But I have 6.5-foot tall friends and they seem comfortable in an 8-foot ceiling, and almost all the older homes are 8 foot.
And again, the reason that we were recommending the 9 feet is the overwhelming, that was the height for the variances that have been granted over the last 7-8 years.
But that's all about grandiosity and spatial feeling. I can tell you that.
Just typical for Edina is what we were saying.
I would say that in Minneapolis that is not the case, right? So
glad to change it to 8 if that's what the commission would like to do.
My only thing is like what you just said, we're always getting those variances just for that, and oh man, those are painful.
I think we're too down. Yeah, I think we.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the variances unless they wanted a 9-foot basement, and then they, like Commissioner Bennett said, then they would come see you and make their hardship.
Commissioner Strauss, did you want to add?
I think we put too much work in this to start, editing at this last. Not that it's not appropriate, but I would like to leave it at 9.
Should we vote on it?
We can bring back too, I don't have the exact numbers, but the number of variances that we did grant and what the ceiling heights were. We can have more information. If it's 8, you're not wed to that number because you're still going to take action later at the public hearing. If it's 8, if it's 9, you can still change either way.
Is there a number written in there today? Is it 9 today, or is there not?
There's not a number.
Okay, thank you.
Just state building code and it's less than 8.
Well, if we said 8, would that generate conversation at the public hearing that we would want to hear from residents? I think that's a good reason for that.
It might. That might be a good reason.
So I'd be for mentioning 8 for that reason.
And again, just to clarify, we would be then voting on it after the public hearing before it gets passed on to the city council.
Yep, you could always change it back to 9. Or if it's 9, you could change it back to 8.
Or remove it to what it is today, correct? Okay. Carrie, does that give you enough to go off of?
So we're going with 8.
So, should we just do a roll and that's how we decide?
This is what you're just talking about, Commissioner Strauss. We're editing at the dais. Do we want to do that? We had something we all agreed on. What are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know that we necessarily agreed on it. This was just the way to not give away the store like the ordinance was 2 weeks ago. So really, this is the first time we've talked, other than we talk about it when variances are requested. The first time we've really talked about what is the appropriate ceiling height for a basement.
Well, can I make a suggestion? That we go ahead and get it on Better Together, and then maybe you could also, before it comes back in front of us to act on it, you could kind of provide us some information on the history.
Yep.
And then we could make a decision. I think I'd like to hear the history on that and see if that's really been an issue or not. And so we still have the chance to switch it back to 8. All right. Switch it to 8 when it comes back to us in front of the public hearing, right? Or we make some.
No matter what number we decide on tonight, we can always change it.
Yeah. But are people comfortable with that, getting at least out there for the public review the way it is now, or did you want to make that change?
I would expect that no one would comment on a 9-foot ceiling because it's so extensive. No one would comment on it, and they would just say that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would change it to 8 now, and then change it to the higher one later.
There's a concern.
I guess the whole part of this is, as things are raising up, just how that connects to the character of things around it. And if people were okay with 8, then it just would generate a better character of the house, just in its relative height, in my opinion. But if no one else wants to do it, that's fine. But this is for very specific and rare circumstances too. So it doesn't seem like it's a hindrance. It's not like we're saying a 6.5-foot ceiling like some parts of Edina and Minneapolis are. But
So I'm going to recommend that we just go around and actually do a vote. So vote whether. In favor would be yes, let's add the condition of an 8-foot ceiling, and a no vote would be no, leave it without a requirement. Does that sound reasonable? I don't know if it has to actually be a motion or if we just go through and vote, but.
Well, 9 feet is in the ordinance now. If we took it out, then we're losing that.
I misunderstood then. I thought there was no number in the variance today.
So when I was asked the question about is there a number in the ordinance today, no. But there is a number in the draft, and that's 9 feet.
Okay. So we'll take a vote whether to adjust the draft ordinance down to 8 feet. So are you just going to vote? Okay. So all of those in favor, please say aye. Oh. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is 8? Okay, aye.
All of those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Let's, 3 opposed, and
I was opposed.
So
4. It's 4 and 4.
well.
8.5.
No, that's 4 and 3. I think you guys won.
Okay, so it stays at 9.
Oh, it's not 4 and 4. It's 4 and 3. Oh, yeah. Okay.
1, 2.
We just couldn't count.
Yeah. Okay. Singular rates.
Oh, so it stays at 9.
Yep.
Yes.
Got it.
But based off of feedback and everything else, we could still change it at the next meeting.
Yep. And we'll have some more information too.
With more data. Thank you.
McMansion.
Sorry for the awkwardness of that.
Put the McMansion clause behind that one.
I should have been prepared. I don't know how to do votes on the fly like that. All right. Not officially last, but the next item on our agenda is to talk about our 2022 work plan. So we've talked about this at a few work sessions, and I think that we are to this state where we would be actually presenting it for review. So I don't know, Carrie, do you want to kind of present it to us as it currently sits?
Certainly. So we'll go through each one, and yeah, we would be looking for a vote this evening for the Planning Commission. And on October 5th, chairs present to the City Council. So the first one is, it's our typical review of land use applications that's in every year. I don't think we need to talk about that one. The second initiative is we will start this year, so by the time 2022 rolls around, it will be continue the planning study of the Edina Business Park. That's the Cahill area. So that's number 2. Number 3 is to reconsider the sketch plan process, including the examination of the development process, public feedback, and the number of public hearings. And this was a recommendation of the Housing Task Force that we talked about at the work session at the last meeting. So that's a change from the last time you saw it. And the fourth initiative are our list of zoning ordinance amendment. They include front yard setback, sign ordinance, accessory dwelling units, and that would be to research and get background and better understand the ramifications, the potential and possibilities. And this was also a recommendation of the Housing Task Force. And the fifth is a continuation of our public and private parking issue. So with the understanding that we will have a work session with the City Council, I believe it's scheduled for December. That was what they had asked for when they considered the ordinance that was before them. So we'll get a little more direction at that meeting. So those are the 5 initiatives for us that the Chair Agnew would present on October 5th, unless you have any. So up for discussion or additions, deletions. I think there's a lot of work there, but I think it's manageable.
Yeah, I know that in the last meeting that we talked through this too, it feels like a lot. I think one thing for me, and especially as I consider presenting this to the council, that I think would be helpful is to go through, and where there are people who are interested in leading up an initiative, we actually input those names. I know that, now that we're all here, we could maybe just walk through and say, if there is someone in particular who would be interested in leading it, volunteer for that. Not a requirement. I think that if we didn't have any volunteers at this moment for one of the items, that would be fine, but I think it would just help build it out, that there is interest on the commission, that there are people who are interested in investing their time to pull together a proposal or an assessment, a research project on this. People open to that, us walking through and assigning leads?
Let's do it.
Let's start at the number 3. So initiative number 2 was the Cahill area. Commissioner Alkire and I are leading that one up. So number 3 is the reconsider the sketch plan process, including development process, public feedback, and the number of public hearings. Is anyone particularly interested in that? I think that one is, of all of these, probably the lightest touch, because it ultimately would be, I would say, research into maybe what other cities do, what's the best practice, and then basically make a recommendation for a revised practice.
And has there been concerns about our practice?
Yeah, so there have been concerns, I think, in the number of meetings that people have to present at, the number of public hearings. Many other places will just hold one public hearing as opposed to 2. And then I know that there's been some feedback from developers and others about how the Edina sketch plan process is maybe more onerous than other cities do. Do you have an interest in that one, Commissioner Bartley?
Maybe. Yeah, sure.
Love it. And you would then, you could pull together others to create a small work group, but I think it's good just to have someone who at least is interested in it to start with. So we'll put you as a lead. Initiative number 4. Well, maybe we can celebrate all of them after. Initiative number 4 is zoning ordinance amendment, so front yard setback, sign ordinance, accessory dwelling units, which that one might be an undertaking, but I think that also extremely important work, and that is from the Housing Task Force recommendation as well. Commissioner Bennett?
I would participate in that as well.
Love it.
Yeah, I'd like to participate in that, especially for the ADU part, but I wouldn't probably be a leader, but I'd want to participate for that part.
Same, I don't care about the other parts as much. I'm kidding, but not kidding.
Yeah, and to be honest, the others are probably the staff lead where we're doing it like we've done most ordinances. But so yeah, it's the ADU would be the one. Help would be appreciated.
And then the last one is the public and private parking. So really continuing the off-street private parking regulation ordinance, as well as, well, you can read it. I don't need to read it all to you.
I want to help with that. I'll
Commissioner
help with that
Olson is
one. I don't want to
interested.
lead it, but I'll help.
I would participate, but yeah, someone else would take the lead.
Okay.
I'd want to be on that too.
Commissioner Miranda, do you want to lead that?
Sure.
Love it.
Hey, stop celebrating.
I am also going to be extremely interested, and I would love to participate. I don't think I'll have the capacity to lead that one as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that I think is one part of it. Are there any other discussions or, yeah, it's open. Discuss.
So I guess one common thread we hear is as soon as the comp plan is updated, it's outdated, right? So I think we should start thinking about re-examining small area plans, specifically like the Grandview one, ones that it's been almost 10 years or more. I think it seems like there's a lot of interest in changing our areas. So just thinking not toward this work plan, but maybe the next one we start actually looking at key parts of the comprehensive plan and start updating those so it's not as mountainous of a task.
Grandview, or didn't really even get the small area plan treatment.
No, and it didn't get it this last go around either. So, I mean,
Well,
that's just
study.
one example. So, and it's selfish because I live right by it, right? So,
It's good incentive for us to finish Cahill in 22, and then we can look at another one.
there we go.
Go ahead.
Yes, and I just say 3 kind of core tenets of the not yet submitted to the City Council, but the climate action plan that is in development. One of them is ADUs, one of them is parking, and one of them is redoing or renewing the small area plans. So I think that dovetails well with that.
Nice.
That's exciting to hear that parking is one of them. Awesome. Well, if there are no other updates, I think this is what we'll go. Oh, do we actually vote on it?
I think a vote would be good, and that's with the changes where we add the leads.
Okay. I'm new here.
So
Do we
moved.
actually need like a motion for
Do we
just
have a
like
motion?
votes?
Yeah, I think let's do that.
I move approval of the work plan with the added assignments or.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Next is chair and member comments. Any comments tonight? Go ahead, Commissioner Bennett.
So I was thinking since our last meeting, and we gather as a community to do this thing, and we totally understand planning matters, and then there's things that can happen in our community that just, none of this matters. And there was that tragic loss we had a few weeks ago, the little girl in one of our, beautiful parks. And as sad as that news was, especially as a father of a similar age daughter, I guess the good thing that came out of it was, on rare occasion, our community came together. And, everyone was trying to do everything they could to find her. And when the tragic news came, the community still came together, just different backgrounds. Everyone dropped their differences and just was there to support what really matters, and that's our life. And if you didn't see, I think a GoFundMe almost raised almost $80,000 for the family so far. And, that's the kind of great things I, believe in our community and are the positive things. And so, again, what really matters in our planning and our efforts is life. And I was reminded of this again a couple days ago. Just a counterpart of mine through the American Society of Civil Engineers posted, as much as gun violence kills people in America, so do drivers. And it's just something we shouldn't forget about as we're the stewards of, public infrastructure, and the roads are where that happens in our city. And I think as development occurs around us, there's these competing interests, and I know Commissioner Miranda experiences it a lot, of getting more throughput. It's focused on getting the car through places faster. And I think we need to take a step back. What's more important, getting a car faster or someone's life? And so as we re-examine our small area plans, I really think we need to just put extra effort on making them so celebrated for the pedestrian so there aren't accidents or incidents. And, there's just one example in Grandview, one of the new designs is to add another lane to not have gentle backups, and that kind of thing is just going against some of those principles. So I hope as we look forward, we really look toward what matters, and that's life and celebrating life. And just wanted to share some other positive news. So this last weekend, if you didn't know, my wife and I bought our house about 10 years ago. It was foreclosed in Edina. And through this crazy connectedness, we sold it to my brother. And this last weekend, he married the man of his dreams in our backyard with friends and family. And, just a few years ago, that wasn't even legal to do. So it's fun to look back in a short glimpse of time and see the positive changes that are happening around us. And I guess sometimes you're sitting on this like I have for 5 years, you lose that sense of urgency, but there is one to do the right thing. So, yeah, that's fun. Just figured I'd share some of those. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Miranda.
Sure. So two big things. One is the Metro Transit released this week an update to the E-Line BRT, which is going to replace the 6 bus on France Avenue. And it go from the University of Minnesota through to Southdale Center. And so now they've gotten far enough where now they have the bus stops, bus stations in a draft form, so you can go to the Metro Council or the Metro Transit website and look up E-Line BRT, and you can see where along France Avenue and elsewhere in Edina that the stops are located. So that's and it's fully funded by the state now, so that's going to be going through. So I think planning will continue through next year. So get feedback on that as soon as you can. The second thing is the Climate Action Plan group has come up with a draft climate action plan, and it's now on the city's website, or I'm sorry, it's on Better Together Edina under Climate Action Plan. And we're looking forward to feedback from residents by October 1st. So it's live right now, and we can get feedback through October 1st. So thank you.
Thank you. So at our last meeting, we had Chair Nemerov at the time provide some of his thoughts on no longer being able to participate in meetings remotely and the impacts that really I think that the pandemic has had on our lives and our ability to really participate in some of these public spheres. I think you all received the email update, but Ian has since decided to resign from the Planning Commission. And so what that means is that as vice chair, I tonight am the chair. And for the city council meeting in which I present the work plan, I will also be serving as chair for that meeting. At the next planning commission meeting that we have, we will officially elect a new chair. And if I happen to be that person who is elected chair, then we would also elect a vice chair. So just know kind of in person, that's the update. That's why Ian has decided to step down. And Ian, if you're watching tonight, which I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, if that's how you're spending your Wednesday evening now. But just, really appreciate all that Ian did on the Planning Commission. I've thanked him personally, but encourage all of you to reach out to him as well. I know that he really contributed a lot to this city and really felt invested in the contributions he was making. So thank you, Ian, for everything you did if you're watching. All right, staff comments.
Just one quick one. The 28th, I believe it's next Tuesday, is the virtual session with Chuck Marone, and I would encourage everybody to sign up. We've only had 3 commissioners so far, so if you would like to, please let me know, and we will send you an invitation to the virtual meeting. It's at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it was the Monday before was the Public Works Infrastructure Tour. So I did do it the last time. I was a new member. And not only for what you get to see, you also get to spend some time with some city officials and like the engineers and stuff like that. So it's a good opportunity to get because it's a couple hours, but I found it, even being in that world, pretty interesting.
Excellent. That's all I have.
Wonderful. The last thing is adjournment.
I move to close the meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
That's